Member for Newtown to move her motion.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that this House, 1, acknowledges that 3 in 4 people with a mobility impairment currently live in a home that does not meet their needs, including tens of thousands of older people and people with disability who have mobility limitations. 2, recognises that any new housing supply in New South Wales must not only be affordable but also accessible to ensure everyone has a home that meets their need and can age in place. 3, notes that the New South Wales government is only one of 2 states that has yet to sign on to the Silver Livable Housing Design Standards in the National Construction Code. And 4, supports the implementation of the Silver Standard in New South Wales to ensure that all new homes built meet minimum accessibility standards. I rise to bring this public interest debate today on behalf of the New South Wales Greens, but also on behalf of the many tens of thousands of people in our community that currently suffer discrimination on a daily basis as a result of our housing being inaccessible in this state. In this place and beyond, housing remains a hot topic. I note that this week is Homelessness Week, and the Greens welcome recent announcements by the New South Wales Labor government that it is finally taking steps to strengthen renters' rights by ending no grounds evictions. So far, though, much of the public debate around housing has centred on the idea of housing affordability and unaffordability, the appalling shortfall of public and genuinely affordable housing, and the merits of new housing supply somehow as a silver bullet to the housing crisis. But in all of this, one aspect is repeatedly overlooked, and that is the accessibility of our housing. In any discussion of housing injustice and how to address it, it needs to recognise that for those living with a mobility impairment, whether they are an older person, Speaker, or whether they are a person living with a disability, that the worsening unaffordability crisis and record low rental vacancy rates are compounded by the fact that majority of homes simply do not meet their physical needs. It is utterly shameful that there are 3/4 of people with mobility impairment issues currently living in a home that does not meet their basic standards. Since Australia's voluntary livable housing design guidelines were introduced nearly 15 years ago, only 5% of new home builds meet accessibility standards. And we know that voluntary codes do not work because voluntary codes allow people to get through loopholes, to sign beautiful little glossy statements and then not actually do anything about it. In New South Wales, where we have the dishonour of being one of the only 2 states that has not signed on to the Silver Livability Housing Standards, there is no requirement for new homes under this massive increase to supply to include at least one entrance without a step, a toilet on an entry level, or hallways wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair. Now, let's be clear, that doesn't just impact the person that is going to be living in that house or may want to rent or purchase or buy that house. It also impacts the ability for people with disabilities or mobility impairments to actually enter the houses of their friends, of their family. The idea that you can have a gathering of people because you actually have an entrance that has steps or a toilet that doesn't have a proper entry level, isn't on the entry level. To be clear, these features are the bare minimum to ensure that homes are accessible and that people with mobility impairments can live with safety and dignity. Queensland, the Northern Territory, the Australian Capital Territory, South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania have all signed on to the Silver Standard to ensure these basic needs are met. It is time that the New South Wales Labor government did the same. This cannot wait any longer. With the government planning new key worker housing and a massive uplift around transit hubs through its transit-oriented development program right now, it is essential that we set the framework now to ensure that new homes delivered under these initiatives are fully accessible. If we sign on to the Silver Standard in a year or at some other distant point in the future, it will be too late. It is not just about people who are currently having mobility impairment that will benefit from this change. By 2036, an estimated 1 in 5 people in New South Wales will be aged 65 or over, and implementing basic accessibility standards will help them to age in place with safety and dignity, if that is what they wish to do. I want to end by acknowledging the tireless work of disability advocates and organisations who have been calling for this common sense and crucial change for years to get rid of the discrimination in our housing in New South Wales. I want to shout out to the Building Better Homes campaign for the rally outside the New South Wales Parliament yesterday, which I was fortunate enough to attend with my Greens colleague in this place, the member for Balmain, the member for Sydney, who's in the chair, and my Greens colleague in the other place, Abigail Boyd. And to all those pushing to dismantle the structural ableism that remains in all aspects of society, including housing, the Greens are with you and will do all that we can to end housing discrimination once and for all. I want to end by also making the point that it is really critical that we recognise that the power of a national code, the power of every state and territory signing up to the Silver Standard, means that we cannot have the interests of the property industry, the interests of big developers dictating whether or not it is feasible financially to deliver housing in a way that is to a Silver Standard. The whole point of a national code is that if all states sign up, we are in a situation where the building industry cannot pick and choose, the property investors cannot pick and choose which states they're going to invest in based on where they'll get the maximum return. By New South Wales dragging our heels on even signing up to the Silver Standard, we are in a situation where we now see other states delaying the implementation of the Silver Standard because of the fact that there's a risk that we see those markets going and that interest and investment going to New South Wales. That means that in New South Wales, the Labor government refusing to sign up to and implement the Silver Standard is having an impact on the accessibility of homes across this country. And I urge the New South Wales Labor government to do the right thing, to sign up to the Silver Standard accessibility housing and support this motion so we can get going.